possibly be called upon to launch. He's won every prize you can imagine. He's been artist in residence just about everywhere you can imagine, all places around the world, and he's won, of course, this Sydney Harbour prize, and he's done these wonderful sweet pictures, which you see here. I don't know how many of you are art lovers or you just drinkers. I don't know. Same thing. At any rate, I know him because I like him, otherwise I wouldn't be here. But I also like the subject matter. And I have long taken an interest in Sydney Harbour and its natural environment. And there are a couple of things that David's got a line out, quite a few things about the show. I read his piece, which is quite interesting. I had a quotation there from somebody I wasn't sure he used, who said that he was talking about seeing something with new eyes. Discovery is about seeing things with new eyes. And because art is about revelation. And artists are about seeing through the thicket of things which affect our lives and influences, and going to the essence in their ability to reveal things to us, either about ourselves or about something around us. In this case, it's about something around us. It's about the harbour. And what I especially like about David's work, given so many people more expert than I have commented on his ability to paint and the manner in which he paints, but his interest in the natural landscape is, I think, a very important one for Sydney artists to have, indeed an Australian artist to have. And the thing you find, most people are somewhat more disinterested in the landscape around Sydney Harbour than they are other things. We've got now a great interest in heritage, but it's mostly built heritage. It's mostly industrial archaeology. In fact, the heritage industry is almost like a sheltered workshop. It lives off the government contracts and all that. And they have, when you say, look, we are interested in the natural rock perimeter of the islands of Sydney Harbour or the harbour itself, that the most important heritage thing is the pre-colonial configuration of the place. They say, well, you know, you're obviously going to earn me nothing. And so they're not interested. Now, I think that I've always loved Sydney's sandstone, the sandstone perimeter of these islands. And just as something reveals itself to you, many years ago, I went to Potsdam in Germany along the harbour, you know, and of course there the Germans they built this romantic park on the principle that nature could be improved by architecture. And just on the points, they had these wonderful buildings that stand out. And of course, as you know, so much of Germany was bombed in the Second World War, but not, so was central Potsdam, but not the Royal Park. And most of it's still standing. And I had the impression there, this is what, you can imagine a little bit what Sydney Harbour would have been like when Arthur Phillip came up there and saw it in all its glory, you know. And then I went back to that view that Greenway had of having obelisks, and he had a pyramid on Garden Island, and you sort of worked your way up through this romantic park. Now the islands are very important in this picture, as they are on the harbour. And David has not just painted islands, but a number of people have painted the islands of Sydney Harbour, but not many have painted a suite of the islands. And also looked through what we've done to them to perhaps give us an idea of what they might have been like. And that's what I think he's done. And for instance, one of his pictures about Goat Island. I'm currently on the Goat Island committee. But I'm trying to get that island back to something like its natural perimeter. Get all the industrial stuff off it and develop this little archipelago which has Goat Island as the centre. As David says in his introduction, the Aboriginal people called it Nunen, the eye. And of course it was one of the places they used in the crossings across the harbour, as he correctly says. And in the eye there were these points, Ballast Point, Ball's Head, what we now call Ballast Point, Ball's Head, the end of East Darling Harbour, Balmain. There's a circle of them. And we have a chance in the post-industrial period of Sydney to actually create an archipelago of these places in the civic domain, because Lloyd Reeves, another artist, predecessor of David's, said to me once, you're too young to know the harbour when it was one. When the harbour bridge was built, it was like a sort of stage curtain came down, and there are actually two harbours. There's the Western Harbour and there's the Eastern Harbour, and you never quite see them as one. But on the eastern side, on the western side, with Caldex going from Ballast Point, and with Keating going from East Darling Harbour, and with none of the industrial uses necessary on Goat Island, there's a possibility of getting this back. And this is what those particular citizens are trying to do. But a lot of it goes to the actual...
Excuse me, guys, are there other appreciators here? Don't speak and we can't get it.
Thank you. But the islands form an important part of the romance of the place. You come up the harbour and you see the craggy headlands, and David describes one of them which is just rock with water running through it. That's called looking glass, I think it is. Bottling glass. Bottling glass of all blues. And then you start to see Shark Island, then Clark Island, and what was Garden Island before it was reclaimed. And I think I'm silly enough to imagine in the long run we could actually open that back up and maybe span it with something to make it appear again as an island. You know? But of course, you'll have the heritage mafia down there trying to protect the toilet house. And you see, there's a great difference between conservation. You see, conservationists will go, and environmentalists will go for the natural shape and look at the place. The heritage mafia go for the bits and pieces. And everyone's lumped together and they're all good guys. Well, they're not. Not particularly good. and I've always had an image of Garden Island as, I think one of the great wastes of time in this country has been the development of Canberra as the capital.